It was a 39,000 crore rupee handshake that Prime Minister Modi and President Putin of Russia shook on today as they concluded one of India's biggest, most complicated and sometimes most controversial weapons deals in history. As Washington frowned upon it, India successfully navigated what is easily going to be seen as one of the most historic weapons contracts ever given out by this country. Take a look at the S-400 deal that India signed today. This is an absolute blast. And the weapon you're looking at right now is the life of the party. Say hello to the Russian S-400 Triumf missile system, one of the world's most capable air defense weapons. And today, Prime Minister Modi shook hands with Russian President Putin to close India's biggest ever missile deal. A 39,000 crore rupee order to give India 5 S-400 missile systems. But this isn't just any ordinary weapons deal. First, the S-400 is a massively capable piece of weaponry. The S-400 is an air defense system capable of firing missiles out to ranges as high as 400 kilometers to intercept incoming missiles, aircraft or drones. It can track up to 100 targets at a time and happens to be the largest missile deal India has ever signed. Like the famous American Patriot system depicted in this animation, the S-400 is built to track incoming enemy missiles at long ranges using very powerful radars. Once inducted 2 years from now, the S-400 will provide cover to the national capital region as well. In the event of an inbound missile threat from China or Pakistan, ground systems will track and confirm the incoming threat. Once that happens, a missile or missiles will be fired. The missile is initially guided from the ground by radars, but during the final stage of engagement, the missile's onboard sensor, called a seeker, takes over to fine-tune its path to destroy the enemy target. Such targets can include ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and any type of aircraft.
The S-400 deal would be a game changer, and this deal and this visit is being very closely monitored by America, China and Pakistan, because all of them from their own perspective are affected parties.
Yes, the military inventory is an important aspect, and the S-400 in particular is going to receive a lot of attention, mainly because of the kind of impact it will have on the India-US bilateral, where the US is likely to introduce the domestic legislation which is called CASTA.
What you may not know is that the S-400 also represents a massive diplomatic coup for the Modi government. Such a deal would normally have attracted sanctions from the Trump administration's new anti-Russia regulations, even for allies. But India's stature in the region and Washington's dependence on India as a counterbalance to China has afforded a special waiver on any sanctions.
The fear of US sanctions notwithstanding, India went ahead and signed the deal for the acquisition of 5 S-400 air defense missile systems. This, the Indian Air Force has described as a game changer. But there is a bigger message that India is sending out, not just to Russia or the United States, but to the entire world. India pursues an independent foreign policy, and relationship with one country is not at the cost of another.
When the S-400s begin arriving 2 years from now, they will be a big shining star, epitomizing the endurance of India-Russia relations in an uncertain new world. With Gaurav Sawant and Geeta Mohan in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today. And I want to bring in India Today's executive editor Gaurav Sawant and our foreign affairs editor Geeta Mohan, who've both been tracking the Modi-Putin summit very closely, minute by minute. Huge takeaways, Gaurav. The S-400, easily the big centerpiece of today's discussions and today's big handshake. This was a difficult deal. It has not been easy to arrive at this stage. The Modi government is going to be rightly claiming this as a diplomatic victory of sorts, because we all know the many hurdles that had to be crossed for India and Russia to sign the S-400 deal, Gaurav.
Shiv, you're spot on. Geeta and I have been reporting on the many twists and turns in this journey, but all through, India maintained one line, that US sanctions on Russia were not UN sanctions on Russia, and India only respects UN sanctions. Point one. Point two, that the S-400 was required in India's national interest, given a hostile Pakistan and an adversarial China. So this protects India's national interests. As you well know, you can look at a target 600 kilometers away, you can acquire a target 400 kilometers away. So this, as the Indian Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Dhanwar said, will prove to be a game changer 24 months from now. So it's a big diplomatic coup for India, because it sent out a message. It loves a great relationship with America, but not at the cost of Russia, Shiv.
Absolutely. And India has sent out a very important message. And Geeta, you've been plugged into the how the government has navigated this complicated deal. And as you and I know, up until the last moment, nobody wanted to commit anything about these deals actually being signed, because things can go any way, in any direction, when the United States and Russia are actually involved. But, finally the manner in which India has been able to lock down this S-400 deal is definitely something that is going to be seen as a diplomatic coup of sorts, Geeta.
Well, more than a diplomatic victory or a diplomatic coup, what this really, Shiv, is not a diplomatic victory for India. It is a very bold move by India, given that Russia wanted to sell the S-400s. How did India manage to do it is the big question. Over here, on the one hand, engaging the US administration, looking for that waiver under CAATSA sanctions. The waiver for S-400 deal is what India was looking for, and continuously engages US on that front. Despite the harsh stance that the US has taken, Shiv, India has gone ahead, and Russia knows that. Despite the fact that there has been no waiver as yet for S-400, India has still gone ahead and signed that deal. It is not a diplomatic victory, but a major and a very bold move by India, and they are going ahead with the realignment of their own strategic partnerships, keeping in mind their own national interests. Shiv, like Gaurav said, we need this defense system, whether it is because of our neighbors on the east or on the west. This is an important defense system that is required, yes, and is the reason why it has been acquired by India. Having said that, India has walked the talk to show Russia, after the dipping of ties, Shiv, show Russia its commitment to the strategic relationship that it shares with Russia. But what has Russia done? Has Russia really allayed India's concerns when it comes to Pakistan-Russia defense cooperation? If you look at the joint statement, there isn't a mention of Pak-based terror groups. Now, that's the question that we really would like to put forth to the officials who we would be meeting in some time from now, as to what is it that they really, what is the kind of conversation that really took place for Pakistan only be alluded to with the terms such as cross-border terrorism and safe havens, and no specific mention of Pak-based terror groups. Now that certainly is a disappointment, but on a day like this, when we've had such a huge win, we would talk about the bigger picture of how India, at least for now in terms of national security, is quite safe.
It's more than a diplomatic victory. It's a big message by India. Gaurav and Geeta, stay with me, because apart from the S-400 deal itself, India and Russia have signed 8 memorandums of understanding ranging from cooperation in transport to development of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is a wide-ranging relationship. So that big hug by Prime Minister Modi and President Putin was not just about military equipment. This is an age-old relationship that has been amplified to the next level. Addressing the media in a joint statement, Prime Minister Modi called the Russian President Putin his close friend and thanked Russia for being India's all-weather friend. Reciprocating India's bonhomie, Russia has promised to back India's mission on counter-terrorism.
हमारे सहयोग को आपकी यात्रा से स्ट्रेटेजिक डायरेक्शन मिला है। आज हमने ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय लिए हैं जो दीर्घकालिक दृष्टि से हमारे संबंधों को और अधिक ताकतवर बनाएंगे। ह्यूमन रिसोर्स डेवलपमेंट से लेकर नेचुरल और एनर्जी रिसोर्सेज तक, ट्रेड से लेकर इन्वेस्टमेंट तक, नाभिकीय ऊर्जा के शांतिपूर्ण सहयोग से लेकर सौर ऊर्जा तक, टेक्नोलॉजी से लेकर टाइगर कंजर्वेशन तक, आर्किटिक से लेकर फार ईस्ट तक और सागर से लेकर के अंतरिक्ष तक भारत और रूस के संबंधों का और भी विशाल विस्तार होगा। यह विस्तार हमारे सहयोग को अतीत के कुछ गिने चुने दायरों के उस पार ले जाएगा। साथ ही हमारे संबंधों के महत्वपूर्ण आधार स्तंभ और मजबूत होंगे। मुझे इस बात की भी खुशी है कि अब से कुछ समय बाद हम इंडिया रूसिया बिजनेस समिट में भी भाग लेंगे। इसमें दोनों देशों से करीब 200 प्रमुख आर्थिक उद्यमी भाग ले रहे हैं।
It is my great pleasure to once again invite Mr. Prime Minister to participate in the next Vladivostok Forum as the main guest at the Vladivostok Economic Forum in September 2019. Russian-Indian Business Forum is taking place in New Delhi these days, and Mr. Prime Minister and I will deliver a statement to its participants, and we will support useful initiatives to develop cooperation in key areas of economy and finance.
Gaurav and Geeta back in. Gaurav, you know, the Prime Minister Modi and President Putin had very, very strong, emotive words for each other, calling each other good friends of each other's country. Take us through what the next step is going to be. This is a crucial phase as far as India's international relations are concerned. Apart from the S-400, what are the next big takeaways for India-Russia relations that we saw today?
Gaganyaan, India's manned mission, sending an astronaut in space, cosmonaut, as the Russians say. Russia is going to help India in its manned mission to space. So that's going to be a very big takeaway. That's something India is really looking forward to. Railways is another area. And this is something that Government of India is repeatedly, trying to emphasize, that this isn't a transactional relationship. Russia has stood by India through thick and thin. Shiv, you and I have covered defense for years, and most of our military hardware, whether it's Admiral Gorshkov or INS Vikramaditya, the aircraft carrier, or the T-72s or the T-90 tanks, the armored personal carriers or the Su-30 aircraft, a lot of our military hardware comes from Russia. It's not going to change overnight, and it's not going to change anytime soon, especially now that we're talking about the S-400s also, and lots more. The Crore class frigates, two to be manufactured in Russia, two at the Goa shipyards limited. So lots and lots of interactions taking place at various levels. Also business to business, people to people, an effort to take this relationship forward to the next generation, Shiv.
Geeta, with the Modi-Putin handshake, and so much is going to be read into, what India and Russia have really achieved today. This is a far older, relationship with many, many more layers, than the emerging relationship between India and the United States. I think a lot of people will be wondering how India balances these two very important and very different relationships. And people will be wondering how India actually navigates it, considering you've got an unpredictable, whimsical administration like the Trump administration in the United States. Are there risks for India ahead, Geeta?
there are risks, but the biggest factor over here is not what US or what Russia is thinking, but the fact that India is the biggest defense market, Shiv. So if the reaction that will come from DC is going to be absolutely negative, and US is not going to pay heed to India's pleas of the waiver for S-400 deal, then who is to lose? Is India going to lose, or is US going to be the big loser in the bigger game of this defense market that India really is? And that's the reason why we are seeing the United States of America also warming up to the idea. But we'll have to wait and see what the entire reaction from Washington DC is going to be, because President Trump certainly is not, his reaction, nobody can surmise. We'll have to wait and see what he really says in the form of a statement or a tweet or whatever comes our way from DC. Having said that, India and Russia are looking at the real picture here. If there are sanctions and if there is no waiver, we are looking at a rupee-ruble arrangement. The money is a lot, so RBI and the Bank of Russia will have to be brought in to find and bring about a system for the two countries to really work within. And the trade imbalance is also something that will have to be addressed. So there are many issues and many areas which are not also happy for now. But remember, Shiv, India is the biggest defense market right now.
Absolutely. And, President Trump has had uncharitable things to say about both India and Prime Minister Modi in the past. So there's no real guessing over what, if any, comment he might make on the proceedings.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.